A while ago, and I'm talking like 2-3 years ago, I had a moment, and it was like after New Year's. It was probably like March or something, and I was like, wow, I love New Year's so much. I love that clean slatey feeling, but I can't achieve or stick to a single goal that I set. Like, I'd get halfway through the year and I'd look at all the things that I set out to achieve and I'd be like, ooh, haven't done any of them. And I remember thinking, like, something's wrong with me. I can't stick to any goal that I set. This is a problem. Fast forward to now, I feel like that was a moment where I was like, okay, I need to do things a little bit differently, and it sort of kicked me off on trying and testing different ways of setting goals. And trying and testing different ways of being productive as well, because that's a big part of it. And I feel like I've definitely done the work when it comes to figuring out how to set goals that you actually follow through with, you remember, you're not bored by, you're not repulsed by, and that you actually achieve. So in this video, I want to talk about what's worked for me, what will hopefully work for you, because these are pretty universally applicable principles, and what has moved me from being a person that sort of gives up halfway through to a person that actually sticks through and follows through with their goals that they set. So firstly, I want to talk about taking advantage of the fresh start effect. The fresh start effect happens when there is a landmark in your life that separates the past from the future. So for example, New Year's. New year, new me, separates the past, the future. Maybe you're not a New Year's person, but maybe you are like a birthday reset person. Or you're someone that gets that fresh start effect at the start of a new school year or a new term. It's really just like a fresh start landmark, often a communal one that a lot of people are impacted by, that make you look back and be like, oh, me then? That's totally different to me going forward. It's actually showing that you're much more likely to take action when you hit a landmark, like your birthday or New Year's, or any time that represents a fresh new beginning. So what I would suggest is, rather than having New Year's or your birthday as your only kind of temporal landmarks in your life, the only times when you sit back and you reflect and you think, okay, what goals am I setting? You actually start to add in more fresh start effects to your year with more landmarks. So make it a point, like in your calendar, to put the start of spring, the start of summer, the start of autumn, your birthday, the start of a term, whatever it is that works for you, and use that as your next temporal landmark. So many people only have one landmark in their year, and that is New Year's Day, their birthday. That's the only time when they sit down and they go, what do I want out of my life? And that's why halfway through the year they look back and they go, oh, I haven't achieved any of that, because they haven't actually set up any other times to think about those things. So to design a life that helps you to achieve your goals, create more of those landmarks and create meaning around them. Make these times of the year where you sit back and you do the same reflecting that you do on a New Year's Day, so that you don't have set and forget goals, which leads me into my next point, which is doing quarterly goal setting. Quarterly or seasonal. I actually like the term seasonal more, but I don't really go with the seasons. We're gonna go with seasonal from here on. So I always used to set my goals at the start of the year, and I didn't really know that there was any other way to do it until I listened to a little audiobook called The 12-Week Year. Pretty much the main concept that it introduced to me was the fact that you don't have to just set your goals at New Year's. That was a total change in the way that I've been doing things. It turned me from someone who only had one fresh start every year to someone who had 4. So I want to walk you through the most important things to include in your little quarterly or seasonal fresh starts. So firstly, when you sit down every 3 months or so, actually reflect, even if it kind of hurts, on how you did last quarter. You might find that you're in the same place as you were when you set your goals on a yearly basis. Haven't actually achieved anything, haven't made any progress, and that is okay, because this is where you can actually learn from that failure. I don't like to use the word failure, but it's a learning experience. When I reflected on this, I have learned some hard truths, and I'm going to talk about a few of those in this video on how I work with goal setting. A lot of them are things that I already kind of knew, but I just didn't want to take on, but actually sitting down and reflecting on them, being like, okay, this is what obviously did not work for me last quarter, and how can I do things differently so it does work in the next quarter. It's pretty invaluable information because it can help you to plan so much better for the next coming quarter. Next up, figure out what will have the biggest impact on your life in the next 3 months. I'll be uploading a whole video soon on how to best choose your goals, so watch out for that one. I won't talk too much about it here. Then you want to write your action plan. So this is a list of the things that you need to do until you feel a little bit of clarity about what needs to be done that will get you to your goal. More often than not, when you're choosing a goal, no matter what kind of goal it is, it'll come with an implementation intention. So let's talk about that next, because there's a way that you can do that right and there's a way that you can do that wrong. So an implementation intention is a declaration of when and where you're going to do a thing. So if your goal is to write a book, your implementation intention statement might be, I'll write for 20 minutes from 5:30 a.m. in the morning every day at my desk. Or if your goal is to feel really amazing in your body, your implementation intention might be, every Sunday at 2 p.m. in my kitchen, I will prep meals for the week. So based based on the studies that have been done, writing out an implementation intention actually increases the likelihood of follow through by 2 to 3 times. If writing out a statement increases the likelihood by 2 to 3 times, it's absolutely worth doing. It'll take you like 5 minutes. No, like 1 minute. So just writing down when and where you'll do the thing increases your likelihood of doing it by 2 to 3 times. But there is a catch, which helps me to move on to my next point. More research on implementation intentions actually found that they only worked when you had one of them. So if you're doing one implementation intention at a time. So choose your most important thing. If you're a really excitable human like me, you get a lot of ideas, you have a lot of things that you want to be working on, you want to be doing, this is going to be a disappointing one. The more things that I set out to do, the less I seem to be able to get done. Set one goal. When I say that you can only set one goal and you can only choose your most important thing, clearly you're gonna have things in the background that you're working towards. You're gonna have life things that you're doing in the background. You can't only focus on one thing all of the time. However, this thing should take top priority. It should be the main thing that you're working on. There should be nothing else that's important enough in your life to distract your focus. I feel like this lesson is something that I am learning over and over again because shiny object syndrome is very real. But if you just implement this and quarterly goal setting, honestly, it's transforming. Next, let's talk about catering to the uh-oh effect. So Daniel Pink in his book When talks about an effect called the uh-oh effect, which happens around the midpoint of a goal. This is something I've recently had experience with, so I was like, okay, let's chuck this in here, let's investigate. So he talks about how at the start of the goal, we are the most motivated by how much we've moved forward. Whereas towards the end, we're more motivated by how small that gap is between us and the end of that goal. So there was actually a variety of small groups that were working on a task, usually like in a meeting room kind of setting, a corporate setting, and someone attended all of these meetings to track sort of what process they followed to get from the start to the end of their project. They found that every single group worked in a very different way. There was no real structured way that they worked towards the thing that they were working towards. However, there was one thing that remained consistent, and that was the timing. At the start of working towards the project, not that much was happening. It was just a lot of talk, a lot of fluff. There was no real progress or action taking. Then there was this massive burst of action all across the board, across all of the project groups. Progress was made, the needle was moved massively forward. And the timing of this huge burst of action was the same. It was at the midpoint. And it was spurred on by the uh-oh effect. So most of the time you'd actually hear someone in the room be like, guys, we don't really have that much time left. We need to start working. And it'd be around the middle of the project when they would say that. It was a literal like uh-oh moment of we don't really have that much time. Let's get moving. The midpoint can cause a slump where you're like, oh God, I have so much left. I can't do it. Or it can cause a massive burst of action to get you towards your goal. You just get a little healthy dose of stress and you're like, okay, let's move forward. Let's do things. So what you want to do is make sure that you get that uh-oh effect by putting a date like in the middle of your calendar, in your planner on the date where it's like the middle of your quarter. And when you get to that date, you know that you only have like 6 weeks left, and that's when you're probably going to start taking massive action. Fingers crossed before that as well. But that uh-oh effect, taking advantage of it, could really give you that energy burst that you need to get to the end of the goal. The next thing that has been absolutely essential towards achieving my goals is weekly planning. Without weekly planning, I would be exactly where I was 3 years ago, very confused as to why I was not making any progress on my goals. To actually make progress on something, you need to have a point in your weeks or in your days where you sit down and go, okay, what specific action tasks do I need to write my book, create my YouTube channel? What do I actually need to be doing on a day-to-day basis? Usually I do this of a Monday night, but you can do it of a Sunday night, of a Friday night, it's whatever works best for you. It really doesn't take very long. It's worth the 10-minute time commitment. The next thing that you should do to design a life that works with you to achieve your goals is to have someone who's in it with you. If you are achieving your goals on your lonesome and you're the only one who is aware of your goals, only one who is checking up on yourself about your goals, it's gonna be very easy to just like casually put your goals to the side. Telling everyone about your goals creates a false sense of satisfaction and makes you feel like you've already achieved your goals, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend telling the people that love you, that think that you're amazing, that you can do all of the things, that you have something that you're working towards, in less of a like, let me tell you something really cool that I'm working towards, and more of, let me tell you about this thing that I'm really wanting to work towards. I really need to put in the work to do it. I've got a list of action steps and I'd love if you could hold me accountable kind of way. If you want to up the stakes, get an accountability partner. You know best whether you're someone who works well with an accountability partner. I know that there are some people that will completely repulse them and they'll be like, absolutely not. For me, it's done absolute wonders. Even just having someone who, when you hit that midpoint and you get that uh-oh moment, just having someone there that I know I can go to and be, okay, let's work this out. Like, help me out here. I'm freaking out. What action steps do I need to take? Or when I'm feeling demotivated, I have someone to pep me up and like give me a bit of a motivational talk. This can be a person that you meet with on a weekly basis to write down your action steps as well, so they can hold you accountable for your little weekly planning sesh. The next thing I want to talk about is inversion planning. I've talked about the concept of creating an inversion plan for your life before, so asking yourself the question, what could I do so that in 5 years time, I'm living the worst life imaginable? And turning that around to help you decide what you need to do in the next 5 years to make it the best time of your life. So this is the same concept, but it's just applied to a goal. Put yourself 3 months into the future, your goal has failed spectacularly. Why? So through this, you could recognize all the things that you know could lead you to failure on your goal. So maybe your thing is to work out more, and you know that winter's coming up and you know that you hate the cold. So one of the reasons might be you were too cold to get up in the morning. Now, what can you do to counter that? Or maybe you fell off the bandwagon because your partner kept on eating takeout in front of you because he's a real takeout person. What can you do to get him on board? Or to reduce the likelihood of you feeling the need to get takeout. Plan as if you're going to fail to make the chances of failing a whole lot less likely. If you liked this video, you're probably going to like my video on 8 easy ways to enjoy your life. I'm going to have that linked on the screen and down in the description below. I appreciate you so much. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you soon.